All right. I'm Mary Bell Nyman, and I'm from Psychic Horizon Center, one of the directors, and it's nice to have you. We're going to work tonight on your shadow side, and that's that part of us that sometimes we're not friends with. We don't want anyone to know we're jealous or we have a temper or whatever it is. Everybody has a different shadow side, and tonight we're going to kind of work on going hand in hand with it, making friends, dancing cheek to cheek, so to speak. So sit back and relax in your chair. Take a minute to just ground or center yourself. And I would take like 3 deep breaths and just let that body let go of the day. You can close your eyes and go inward. And as you do that, let your body go from the base of, you can create a grounding cord from the base of your spine to the very center of the earth. And just allow those 2 points to be connected. You can use a giant redwood tree, a beam of light, an anchor and chain, whatever feels good to you. Kids like to use a giant monkey's tail that wraps around a stick in the middle of the earth. So you can get just as creative as you want to be. And as you do that, expand that grounding cord so it's as big around as your hips. And throughout the next hour, as we come across concepts that might trigger a feeling in you, you can let some of this energy go down that grounding cord. Just as a way to release whatever you no longer need. So breathing. And lots of times when we look at things we don't like about ourselves, we're afraid that people are going to reject us or not share their affection with us if we disappoint them. Especially as little kids growing up, we're taught to look outside ourselves, to our teachers, to our parents, to society for the answer. We're not always taught how to go within and find it ourselves. And so we fear that disapproval. And sometimes we grow up and we keep parts of it hidden. Other times it's something that we might feel embarrassed about, or it might make us feel vulnerable. And so we want to hide it. And that's what we're going to consider today as our shadow self. And each of us usually has something that, we're not as comfortable with sharing. It's like, oh, if somebody knew that about me, they might not like me. And that really isn't true. But think for a minute, if you were going to pick one, if you were going to pick something that would be your shadow side, what would be one thing you would tend to hide from people or from yourself? And just take a deep breath and just say hello to it. And invite that part of you to come sit down in the chair beside you. And sometimes when we can learn to make friends with all of our feelings, whether it's a feeling of anger or jealousy, whatever it is, when we can make friends, it starts to become like an ally versus a foe. It's not like something we have to fight against or struggle with. So sometimes we'll notice in someone else, oh, I love that quality in them. I like their leadership quality or their ability to be neutral. And you can do the same thing. It's kind of like, oh, I want more of that neutrality. And so it's like little by little experimenting and trying that on for yourself. and seeing how that feels to you. It's kind of like acting like you have that quality so that you start to use it a little bit more and more. You can even announce to your family, I'm learning how to be more patient. Kind of help me with that. And letting the steps that you take, sharing them so that people can see you stepping up and trying something different. If you're an impatient person, it might be patience. It's like, hey, I'm going to try and learn to be a little bit more patient or a little bit less critical. And it's kind of like you can trade one concept for another. So instead of being critical, you can be curious. I wonder why that person acts that way, instead of just judging them right off the bat, critiquing. So all of the steps that you take kind of help you start to become more aware of the things you don't like in yourself and start to shift it. And that to me is where it gets kind of fun. So if we look at the shadow as just parts that we don't own or parts we don't feel as comfortable with, sometimes it keeps us from being in our authentic self, from being able to be as creative as we can be. So it makes us a little bit less secure, so that we start looking for that validation outside ourselves instead of going inward and knowing our own self-worth. We start to judge ourselves by how other people feel about us, around us. And there's nothing wrong with, I would say, when you can validate yourself, you're the ice cream, the hot fudge, and the whipped cream. And if you look for validation from someone else, hey, they're the cherry. But that self-worth comes from within you. And really knowing that, making friends with that. And then if someone else validates you, allowing it to validate what you already see in yourself. So helping yourself take another step by finding that worth inside. So take a deep breath. And just notice anything that maybe you have a hard time doing. I know my husband and I joke, he was like, I could never speak in front of a crowd. That would just be his worst nightmare. And to me, it's like, oh, it's so much fun. I love it. The more people, the merrier, because you can really bounce off each other and create. And he's like, oh, no, 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 you know, even one person's enough. So, you know, what's one thing that we enjoy might be something that somebody else doesn't, and that's okay. We all have qualities that we're good at, and the world would be really boring if we didn't. So when we get embarrassed to be playful or show that side of us that's creative, sometimes that fear can cause us to be a little bit less secure in expressing what we're really feeling. Kind of like if you would imagine a redwood beam laying down on the floor, you can walk on that very easily. There's no fear. But if you raise it 100 feet in the air, that would be a little scary. So things that seem easy for us, if they raised it up 100 feet, that might be scary. I wouldn't be up there on 100 feet above even with a net on a beam. So it's kind of like when something's really easy for you, recognizing that that same thing may be really scary for someone else. And that is that feeling of that beam being up so high and not having a way to feel comfortable on top of it. Where if you put it on the floor, we'd all be fine. It's kind of how I made friends with, how can that be, you know, how can that person feel that that ability would be so hard to do, being playful or being creative. So when we lose that part of us that really likes to create and get stimulated, that's like the juice that makes us run. And it can make us vulnerable because we're really sharing our passion. And if someone doesn't respond to that, then it can be easy to take that as an invalidation or a criticism. And so learning how to really own it for you. And then if someone else has a hard time with it, that's okay. That's their prerogative, but you get to be where you are and open into your vulnerability just by being.
Mary Bell, unmute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I don't know how that happened. So take a deep breath. And let's just say hello again to that part of us that's grounded. It's already there. You don't have to recreate it. And just close your eyes for a minute. And imagine out in front of you, arm's length, a big bubble. And just put in that bubble any feelings that come up for you about being vulnerable in front of a group of people, whether it's friends or family. Anything that isn't comfortable. Our shadows tend to come out around people that we really love and trust. The people that we least want to hurt. And so, what are those feelings of vulnerability? Letting them go out in that bubble. And then just popping that bubble and letting that energy dissipate. And doing it again, doing one more bubble with any of that vulnerability, any of that fear. Just letting that come out of your body into that bubble. And notice if you resist that energy in any way. Lots of times we'll think, oh, if that happened to me, I would die. And we really wouldn't. And just let that resistance go in that bubble with that feeling. Because running away or going into resistance never helps. So no matter how much we run or hide or pretend, that shadow is always with us. So like it or not, it's a constant companion. And it's much easier to have it come and sit beside you and work with it than to resist it. Kind of like resistance is futile. So pop that bubble out in front of you and say hello from inside your space. Say hello to that vulnerability or that fear of messing up in front of the family. And then ask that part to just come and sit beside you on the couch. And just send a hello into that energy, that part of you that would be easy to resist. It makes you feel vulnerable. Just send a hello into it. Hey, what are you here to teach me? And just take a minute with it. See if you can find at least one thing you've learned by that part of you. And just validate it. Doesn't matter if it's little or big. Sometimes we can take some of the things that we think are not acceptable, and we can find interesting parts that we've learned. If somebody's a control freak, they have to control everything, they're really good at organizing. That's usually one of their top skills. So if you happen to have controlling issues, just validate your ability to organize everything, to have everything just so, and validate that. When we can start to accept it, it kind of takes some of the charge out of it. Like people that are afraid, if they're stuck in fear, they can learn, like if there was a real snake, that fear propels you to jump away. So it helps you take action. You might discover you're stronger than you thought you were, that you take care with more confidence. So there's things you can discover in each shadow. I'm just going to do one or two more. Like in anger, you're learning how to be patient. You're learning how to have more empathy and tolerance. Sometimes you're learning about boundaries. It's like, oh, that's an interesting idea. I don't feel the same way you do, but that's an interesting idea. Instead of being angry that they have a different viewpoint. So all of these shadow sides have parts that we can really make friends with and see the good in it, as well as the part that is hard for us. Shame is a tough one. That can bring about being more vulnerable. It might bring about finding more confidence, reacting to external things, old patterns. And so you can learn something from all of those parts of you, no matter what it is. So taking that energy and finding some acceptance in yourself for that part that feels like a shadow. And just finding acceptance of the wounds or anything that felt, made you feel vulnerable. And watching that part of you without judging it. So when you find yourself going into that emotion, it's like, oh, there's my anger again. There's my judgment. There's my shame, whatever it is for you. And sending it your compassion. Just like if you were watching your partner go through something like that, you might tend to have more compassion for them. And you're going to learn how to do that for yourself. So it's even liking the shadow as if it was a small child inside you. It's like being kind to that part of you. Take a deep breath. And again, with that part sitting next to you on the chair or the couch, just sending that vibration of acceptance to it. And notice if it starts to get smaller or has less of a charge. And you might even ask it again, what are you here to teach me? Why did I pick, out of this whole life, why did I pick anger to work on? Why did I pick resistance or critical energy? We all have a choice of what we work on during a lifetime. And so we handpick certain lessons to work through. And so instead of resisting them, getting curious. Why this? What was it I wanted to discover about myself? To me as a soul. Because this body's temporary, but as a spirit, we're going on forever. So what are you trying to learn how to be as a being of light? And if anger gets in your way or impatience is your Achilles heel, how does that keep you from being what you want to be as a soul? And just being a tiny bit amused, it's like stubbing your toe. Rats, I hate that. But it's just a hiccup. And the more you can accept it, the easier you move through it. So again, send a hello to that part sitting next to you that you vowed to resist your whole life. Maybe poke it a little bit, tickle it. Not taking it quite so serious, but just saying, oh, you're here to teach me. Duh, I forgot. I'm going to start having fun with you and see what I can learn, because you wouldn't be in my life unless I drew it. And if you're going to be what you want to be for eternity, you might have to move through a few things and find more acceptance in order to have that great time. And lots of times we can change how we feel about things. There's kind of like subconsciously, in order to get what we want, we think, or what we think we deserve, it's necessary that we have the feelings that go with it. And this is one thing I see when I counsel with people all the time. I might be working with a woman who says, I want a man for a partner. But the feeling underneath it is, oh, there's no good men out there in the world. And so they don't line up. The thought and the feeling aren't connected. They're totally different. And so it's hard to create that reality if they're two separate things. So if she starts thinking, oh, I want a partner, and there are plenty of good men out there, the thought and the feeling can come together and you can create it. So looking at where our thought process is and how we line it up with our feelings about that. If we still don't feel safe to be in a relationship, it's kind of hard to create one. And no matter how much you walk around saying, I want one, it's kind of hard to do. So the first thing that has to come together are the thought and the feeling. And so just notice with your friend sitting beside you, what have your thoughts been about this energy you've been trying to master? And then what are your feelings about it? We can change our feelings by how we think. It's like changing our perception of what's right in front of us. And then we can start to have much more of an ability to create what we need or what we want. So again, take a deep breath. And as the world changes, and boy, is it changing quickly, and thank goodness it's needed to change for a long time. But there's always been these social restrictions that often make it inappropriate to really say what you really feel. It's like, oh, you can't say that. You can't express that. You might have to stuff your anger, or you're feeling resentment. You're feeling abandoned, whatever it is, you might have to stuff some of those feelings. And so when you have to stuff them, then it doesn't let that authenticness come out. And so again, putting that bubble out in front of you, and start to look at how you want to work with that part of you that you've resented or hid or locked away. And as you sit there, if you go within again, close your eyes and just start to let some of that old energy you've been holding on to drain down your grounding cord. Just breathe and start to release it. Look at all the things you haven't been able to say this lifetime. And you can just imagine dropping them, even like rocks, down your grounding cord. The nice thing about a rock is it won't hover in midair, it goes down. So just releasing all the things you didn't have permission to say. All the times you were resentful. All the times you felt anger over something. Anytime you were jealous. Anytime you weren't asked for your opinion, maybe with your parents, it wasn't okay to express it. Just start to let that energy drop down that grounding cord. And then if you would, we all have guides that work with us throughout our life. Ask one of your guides to come in and stand behind you. And maybe put its spirit energy, hands on the top of your shoulders. And just ask that guide to release out of your body all the energy you're ready to let go of. You don't even have to know what it is. It's just anything that's keeping you from having the next step. And to me, that next step is really loving who you are, being who you want to be in the world. And just let that guide do the work. Your job is to sit there and be mildly amused and just let go, just release any energy. And breathing as that guide releases that energy, start to think of what you'd like in its place. When we let go of energy, we always want to fill in with something that works for us. So you can create a huge gold sun twice as big as your body, set it on the top of your head, and just think, fill it with the energy of what you'd like. It could be more patience, feeling calm inside, really loving who you are and being willing to share that. Whatever it is. It might be calling in a new job, a new partner, taking your next spiritual steps. And just put all that up in that gold sun and then pop it. And let it flow in and start to fill your whole head and your brain. And the part behind the right eye that we call the analyzer, that's always figuring things out. Down into the neck, the shoulders. There's always a lot of responsibility in the shoulders. So letting that new energy push that energy of responsibility out so you don't take the world so serious. Coming down into the physical body, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the intestines, just letting them all fill up with energy. All the muscles and bones. Through the tummy. Down into the legs, the feet, and then all the way out into your aura. Just giving back to yourself brand new life force energy. And finding that place of comfort where you just get to be who you are. Because the main part about taking a body is we're striving to learn how to be. And we're a human being. So it's intrinsically what we are, is that being part. So as a spirit, all we are is love. And we're learning to have that as a spirit in a body. So as we create a bridge to help us get from old programming in our DNA to what we want now, there's a shift happening. And we're coming much more into unity and oneness around the globe. I love that all the protesters were in every country. It's like, it is about time. So it's just a miracle to see all of us coming together and uniting. And this is part of that beingness of building a community of oneness where we're all equal. We all get the same voice, and having that be love-based instead of greed and power and things that have dominated our culture for so long. So take a deep breath, and as you filled in with that, just checking in with the body and seeing if it feels a little bit different, a little bit lighter. You might give it a stretch, move it around. It's been sitting there so patiently. There we go, a little movement. One of the things I find so fascinating is lots of times our fear of things on a thinking level is so much worse than the actual thing happening. So we'll build up this experience in our mind. Oh, it's going to go like this, and then this is going to happen, and this, and this, and this, and we'll build up all this worry. And it's 10 times worse than anything we would, actually do. And so it's like learning how to turn that mental mind off or down and really being present to what is. And it's kind of, I'll use the virus. If you got the virus, you don't have the virus right now, but if you got it, you would get help. You would learn the steps you need to do to take care of the body. It's common sense. You would do that. But right now, you can't be paralyzed by worry or fear. You want to take the necessary precautions, but you also have to live. And part of that living is really enjoying where you are, having fun in your family, celebrating, talking to friends. If anything, it makes you appreciate your relationships even more because they become so much more precious. And so really, even though we're in the middle of this huge shift, still finding that joy in your life, still living your life, and taking the safety measures, but don't stop living. Don't be paralyzed by fear. A lot of it's just going to be in the brain, and it's a loop going around and round, just coming up with all the things that could go wrong. Hey, what about all the things that could go right? There's two sides. So when you live from that place of freedom, it's a lot more fun. It gives you a lot more experience. It gives you a lot more room to navigate and to change how you feel. So kind of keeping an eye on your mind and what's the constant chatter in your mind, what emotion comes up, so that you can be aware of it. And then you can help the body. Again, it's sitting down like we did. And what did it take us? 10 minutes to kind of make friends with that part of us that we were a little worried about before? It's not hard. And so when we get out of resistance and we can make friends, we can work with that part of us, then it's easy for us to change and move on. We can become more creative. We can see a different way we haven't seen before. We can learn from those around us. And so that's the fun part of shadow dancing with your shadow, is there's so many benefits. You can shift out of what you thought was so terrible and find that it really isn't that bad at all. There's one other exercise we're going to do. And if you take your finger and put it right behind your ear, there's a bone there. Same on this side. And kind of follow it. It almost makes like a smile, called the occipital ridge, right behind the ears. And it just makes like a little smile. And if you could imagine coloring that white, we're going to do a pain ridge healing. And so again, when you close your eyes, this is the place in the whole body that emotional pain is held. If you've ever gotten a massage and that masseuse holds that spot, oh my goodness, it's just like nirvana. You can get rid of all the pain in the body. And that's what we're going to do. So when it's white, we're going to look for little purple dots on it. And we're going to just imagine touching those with our finger. We don't really have to use our hand. We'll use our mind, but we'll imagine just touching those pain points and releasing the energy. So you can just imagine that this little ridge is now going to be white. And let's close our eyes. And just start to look from one side to the other. And wherever you see a purple dot or picture, just touch it. And just watch as the energy just drains out of it. It just releases. And go to the next one. And just take a minute and go up and down that smile, just touching those little purple pictures or dots. The great thing is you don't even have to know what it is. And some of that pain could be from years ago. But it's nice to get a little freedom from it so that you have more mobility. And just breathing and releasing, letting go. Sometimes the changes are subtle, but as you practice, you start to become more and more aware. So you start bringing your thinking and your feeling together in alignment. You start looking at, like with that example of somebody wanting a relationship but not thinking there are any good people out there. How old were you when you created that concept? Was it your first breakup? Somebody broke your heart and you decided, okay, that's it. Not going to ever do this again. Many times it's a judgment we made as a younger person. And hey, that was our reality at the time, but it certainly isn't our reality now, 20 years later. So you have to go, oh, there's that part of me that at 10 or at 20 or at 30 created this awareness. But boy, I've grown past that now. And now it's time to update my data. And in this moment, hey, there's a lot of great people out there you can have a relationship with. There's tons. So the way you create a happy relationship is by being happy within yourself. And then it spills over. You start to notice things about your partner. So keeping that relationship alive is really about noticing the things that work with your partner, dancing with what is. It's like, oh, thank you for fixing dinner. Thank you for taking the garbage out. Hey, I can take the garbage out, but you know, it's really nice if someone takes the garbage out for you. It's not a big deal, but it's nice. And so it's really appreciating what that person does for you or what they offer, and really seeing them. Who are they as a soul? Where are they going? Why did they pick you out of all the relationships on the planet? Why you? What did they want to learn that you have? That's a very special thing. And for you that are parents, out of all the parents on the whole planet, your child handpicked you much more than you did. They picked you out of all the parents. That's pretty amazing. So, you know, these life aren't just happenstances. It's really waking up to the reality of who we are as spirits, as beings, and walking hand in hand with all parts of us, learning to really love and appreciate where we are and where we're going, and giving that shadow part of you, hey, giving that part love too. It's all part of our oneness, and let yourself have fun with it. It takes courage to love yourself and step up, but the rewards are amazing. And you become the being that the source, however you see that, designed you to be. You know, here you are endowed with this divinity and this divine part of you. And this is the lifetime you wanted to be conscious of it, to really use that awareness every day. And here's your chance. So it's letting go of anything that blocks that and really having fun dancing through this lifetime. So one last time, take one more big gold sun above your head and fill it with brand new energy. Let's say the energy that honors the divineness in you. And really think about it. What do you want to be for eternity? The choice is yours. What are you going to be? Put it in that huge gold sun. Put anything in there that you need to accomplish that. And pop it. Let it fill you in from head to toe. And we're going to end with like a little 5-minute meditation going up to source. So if you'd be aware of your 6th chakra where you've been working, and the crown at the top of your head, then let's go up 2 feet to the 8th chakra. And you can just be in that meditative, quiet space. 8th chakra contains all your information, why you came to incarnate. Going up a mile or so straight up to the 9th chakra, the dream plane, the astral plane, where you dream at night. A couple more miles way up to the 10th chakra is the doorway to other universes. The 11th chakra, going straight up, is your grace, your essence as a soul. And the 12th chakra is the Godhead, that place of oneness where we as all souls connect. Many names for it. And just be in that place. And find, there's always a part of you as a soul, your higher self, that doesn't take a body, that stays in that soul place. Find that part and connect with it. And let it remind you of what you came to do this lifetime. Getting a little blessing on it. Just getting a sense of that oneness. And bringing that back down with you to the 11th chakra, the 10th chakra, the 9th, we're just taking the elevator down, the 8th, all the way down to the crown at the top of your head, and into the 6th. Just bringing that little blessing, that little hello, all the way back with you. And breathe. Sometimes it's a good reminder of who we are and why we did come. All right, then you can stretch, come out of that light trance, wiggle that body. And thanks for coming tonight, just playing with different concepts. Next week, Debbie will be here and she'll be working on past lives, and you're going to pick 3 lifetimes and see what each of them brought you, how they helped bring you to where you are now. So if you want to work with some of your past life energy and bring it into the present, that'll be a great thing to do next Saturday night. I don't have my calendar, but I'm on the rest of July, except for 4th of July. We'll be celebrating the country. But after that, I'll be back for the rest of the workshops in July. So thanks for being here. I appreciate each of you. Namaste. Be well, be safe, and have a great time. Really love your life. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Oh, you're welcome.
Bye
You're
now.
welcome. Thanks for
Bye
being
now.
here. Yeah.
Thanks, Mary Bell.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Nice to see you too. Yeah.
Really great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care.
You
Thanks
too.
for coming. Tell Ishita hi.
Yes, I sure will.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. See you. Bye, Pat. There we go.